Hello, everyone. I'm Donnell McAdams. I'm here tonight for a quick gifts that, now it's time to be finishing up things. It's the 10th. We've got like 15 days if you're going for the 25th for Christmas. So we are going to do a quick gift tonight, and I'm going to be telling you what you need so that you will be able to write that down, because it's some pretty simple measurements, but you're probably going to want to be able to repeat this project. So you're going to need a piece of fabric that is 2 inches wide by 7 inches long. Now this is an optional piece because this is what you will make the little hanger for our hot pad. And then you need 2 pieces that are 10 by 10. So great project for layer cakes. Now I've got one on here already. It's the same fabric, but this would be great if it was 2 different fabrics, so you would get some highlights in it. So one of them, I have put half of a 10-inch square of fusible fleece on there. So I've got a half of a 10-inch square, cut one 10-inch square, and you can make 2 of these. And then I have one of my 10-inch squares that has underneath it 2 layers of batting. Okay, I use a thinner bat, so I'm using 2 layers of this. You could even use that Insel Bright that we used a couple of weeks ago. And if you did that, the shiny side would be down to this piece right here. It would be to your backing. So 10 by 10, 2 pieces of batting. Again, you could use a layer of Insel Bright. Put the metallic side down to your backing. My backing piece is a 14-inch square. So what we're going to do is we're going to quilt this first, and then we are going to quilt this, and then we'll put those together and finish the project up. But first, while I have my regular foot on here, I am going to go ahead and sew 2 sides of this. Now what I did here is I have folded this in half and pressed it. So this piece was 2 inches, now it's 1 inch. When you fold it in half, I opened it back up and pressed both sides to the middle. So I think you can see that both sides are pressed to the middle. And then I pressed it so that it's only a 1/2 inch wide now. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to stitch down both of these sides right close to that edge. So let's just go ahead and get that done. Go ahead and cut that. And then I'm going to turn it around and sew close to the other side. Now, when we're ready for this, this will be, again, it's optional if you like to have a little bit of a loop on your hot pad. Now you can either, when we put this together, you can either do it like this. Some people like to do it like that, or you can just put them together at that point like that. So I'm just going to lay that aside for right now. And the first one that we're going to do is this piece right here. So I'm going to go ahead and change it, because I can actually, you could stitch it straight stitch, obviously with your regular foot. But since we are doing ruler work, and I find it faster to do it this way anyway, that's what we're going to do. Now I have matching thread top and bottom, and I chose to use the, it's kind of a cranberry color. And I want to get my thread through that loop. And I'm going to use my what's called Ditchworks Lineworks tool template. And you can see here, it's just got the path through there, which we're going to stitch. And I am going to stitch it so that the fleece side, the one that has the fleece, that's down. And then this is going to be my top side here. So I'm going to stitch from side to side. I have little marks on here that will tell me where I can line up. So the first one, I'm going to make it real close to the edge. So I'm just going to have it so that it's right here along that edge. And we are going to stitch that. Now, because I have this extra out here that's going to get covered up, I don't have to worry about pulling up my threads or whatever. They're going to get stitched out. So I've got to really hold down on this to get going. There we go. Well, no, we didn't. There. It's always difficult when you got like a diagonal there to get started, but we're going to be okay. And I think part of that was because my thread got caught. So I'm just lining this up with this edge. And that's kind of a top stitch there. And I'll just cut that thread. Now it will get easier as we go. That first one can be a little tricky. But now that we have one of those stitches in there, I'm going to line it up with that line right on top of what I've already stitched. This is a great tool for a lot of things, for stitching in the ditch, doing what I'm doing right here. Obviously, there are other ways to do it. We could have actually put on an echo guide and use that in a ruler to get that distance apart. You're going to start to see that we have a lot of opportunities to do this type of stitching. So I'm going to come here again, foot down. And as I told you, you can see that it's getting easier to get that started. Now, there's nothing wrong with what I just did. It wasn't what I intended to do, but it'll be fine. I meant to have all of these that distance apart, but this one I put close together. So let's do the next one, the farther apart like I had planned out. And we'll just kind of alternate it. Sometimes a mistake allows you to be creative, and you'll like it better than you did if you'd have done it the way you had intended. Now, while I'm doing this, I will go back and tell you what I actually used fabric-wise, but I want you to know that we are going to have an end-of-the-year party. It's going to be a little different this year. As I've told you, I didn't know exactly what I'd be able to do because my niece is getting married and I can't do New Year's Eve. So we're going to do New Year's Eve Eve. So that will be on Friday, December the 30th. Kate and Stacy are both going to join me for that evening. It's going to start at 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to be having our New Year's Eve party on that Friday. So plan for that. You know, we've done it in the past, obviously then on New Year's Eve, but we're going to have New Year's Eve, and it will be about 3.5 hours long. Stacy's going to be here to give out lots of prizes, and Kate and I are going to be sharing. I'm not sure if it's going to be just techniques or a project, but we're going to be sharing that night. So looking forward to that like we always have. And maybe some of you this year had planned to go to a actual New Year's Eve party. So maybe having it on this New Year's Eve will be better for you anyway. So you'll be seeing more about that in the coming days. So watch for that information on the So Steady Facebook page. And I imagine there'll be some sort of a sign up, because if we're going to give away prizes, we've got to know that. I'm going to try and watch for questions. Megan's gone today, so I'm alone. Well, I'm here with Boo Boo and Ruthie. But unfortunately, they're pretty smart kittens, but they can't read, so they can't tell me what your comments are. I've heated up the iron because this will look so much better. Because it is a bias, it's really acting like a bias, but after I press it, it will be just fine. Look, I almost got clear across there without having to move it, but it's not hard to move. I threw in another one of the, just 1/4 of an inch apart there. The rest will all be farther apart. I hope everybody is having a great time getting ready for the holidays. Megan put one of our Christmas trees up the other night, and I think that might be just about all that I get up as far as Christmas trees are concerned. I love decorating for Christmas, but I also enjoy sewing for Christmas. So I've got some gifts yet to finish. You could always put an actual template on here. I thought about, after I got started with this, I probably should have used some of my Christmas motifs, maybe put a star or something like that on this. But we will be fine right here. If you've not seen the Christmas motifs, yesterday's template tasting on the So Steady Facebook page was on that. And last week was a 4J&T, and I had a lot of fun with that 4J&T also. So you do whatever you want to do to look back on those so that you can see how that was all finished. Now I'm just going to press this. I've got my iron over here at the side. So there's what we have with all of our little rows of stitching there. And now we're going to do this one. Now I told you this is a quick gift, so we're not making this like all hard and difficult and all of that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm using my green mat, and I'm going to put this edge right here on the 0, knowing that it's 10 inches. Then there's my 5 right back there, and I'm just going to chalk my line. And I'm going to turn it this way and put that right like that. So that's on the 10 back here. And there's my 5. I'm going to make sure one of the lines going across here is on my line so I can get that straight. So now what I'm going to do is through all of this. Now, I didn't because it's sticking together, but you could have fused this together with any kind of I like to use the Quilter's Basting Spray by June Taylor. You can use whatever you want to use. And I'm going to line this up and get my 1/4 inch here. So I will stitch right on that line. Oops, do you see that? I've got 2 bats. I need to actually go to my medium weight on my guide there as far as my ruler works. So that will be a lot easier. Now I'm just going to go over like this because that's right in that edge. And I'm going to go 1 1/4 inches apart. So what I've got here, if I have 1/4 inch there, then from this edge to there, I need 1 inch. So I've got it right here on my ruler. I'm just going to come back and go back this way. I like to stop and make sure that I've got it in the back before I go clear across there. I'm just going to go over. I'm going to take my ruler and put that, well, I lucked out on that. That's right where, just a smidge where I need to be. Now, since I didn't do any fusing of this together, I definitely want to keep it so that I'm pulling this out nice and flat each time. Moving that over, need to go just a bit. Can't see that, so let me see where I'm at. There we go. Now, as you can tell, it really wouldn't matter whether I did the next one or not. It's not going to be 1 1/4 inches, and it's going to be underneath there. So I really don't need it. So I'm just going to go ahead and just take a few stitches back to secure that. And then we're going to come down here and do the same thing on this side. And since we're doing 1 1/4 inches apart, it goes rather quickly. Forward and back just a bit. The thing that I love about this is obviously they're a bigger Hotpad than you're going to find in the store. And since it's the same, how do I want to say it, the 10-inch square, you probably have some leftover pieces that are that size. If not, obviously it's an easy enough thing to cut. You're going to be able to get like 4 of these across the width of a piece of fabric. And it's just going to make it so that you can pretty quickly get this all together. I save my batting. I don't know how many of you remember me talking about this, but I always cut my batting with a rotary cutter and a ruler, even if it's just the scraps off of the edge, because then I can just put them in a crate of some kind. I actually use a laundry sorting basket. And that way, when I'm doing my work and using scraps, I have nice straight edges. Now it's kind of beyond my thoughts as to why that one came out smaller, but this is wider. I'm not worried about it. Let's just come down here to the edge and get our 1.25 inches because now we do have space to do it on this end. It's going to end up being underneath the binding, which is going to be a self-binding. I think that moved a little bit. There we go. And of course, you could piece your fabric. You do not have to just use a whole piece of fabric. You could do crazy quilting. You could do whatever you want to do. And use up your scraps. And I've told people this many, many times. I can do this faster than using like my walking foot. I will also let you know that we are going to be doing a lot of new and creative ideas, classes, all kinds of things for next year. So if you're not signed up on that Sew Steady Facebook site, get signed up so you're going to get all the information. I just love that. So I'm going to line this one up, get in that edge. And this is a good project for beginners too, because anything following a ruler, straight lines is going to be a great experience to get you going on that. Lining up this center of this ruler, coming back. Of course, you could make this any size you want. This is going to be our last line. So I'm just going to come back a little bit. And I'm going to check to see if I have any comments, questions. I love it, Jenny. Not putting the tree up this year as our new kitten's a climber. That's funny because I know exactly what you're talking about. What is the yellowish tool that I used yesterday? Oh, is this what you're talking about, Jenny? Some may not have seen this before. Okay. This tool is, you can see there, it says it's by Janet Collins. And this is what she calls her all-in-one tool. And it is available now. This end is 1/4 inch. This is so you could put your needle in, or it will give you 1/4 inch. You've got a couple of things here, like if you're measuring for your center to know which way is straight, up and down, you can lay that down and use that. This, as you can tell, is kind of like our stitching line disc, but it's not used that way. It's used more for pen placement. This piece right here, if you put your needle in that slot, this edge is 1/4 inch away. And then this is a stylus down here. So I think there's even a couple of more things that Janet has on this, but I'm not sure exactly what they are. But I think that's the tool that Jenny was talking about as to what I used yesterday. So I'm going to scroll down here and see. Yes, I'm sewing on a Janome M7. So anyway, hopefully that's what Jenny was referring to. So now we've got this finished. We've got our nice squares on there. And what I need to do next, we're not going to worry about this difference here because this is going to come around and come over like so. So what I need to do is cut 1.5 inches from the outside of our edge there. So let's see, I think I got my board right underneath here. Yep. So I'm going to take my board here and lay that down. And what I'm going to be doing is measuring 1.5 inches out from this widest edge. I'll lay that right there. Whew, I don't have a whole lot to work with right here. Just a sliver. The reason I like this ruler is because it's yellow. Actually, I think it's more green, but whatever. I can see through it better than a clear one. So I'm putting this on the 1.5 inches. Right like that. Oops, didn't get the beginning. And today, because our project is a quick project, I should be able to show you how to use my Quick Easy Miter binding tool so that you can easily finish this up. So the next step, what I'm going to do is I am going to be pressing. So let me get my pressing board here. This up to that edge. So get my little iron here. And we're going to turn that in. And like I said, it's not going to matter because when we turn this again, it will cover that up. So I'm turning that in and pressing it. We're going to come down here. I'm going to turn that out. And for those of you that joined us late, I have two 10-inch squares of fabric, one 14-inch square, which is my back piece that I'm now turning, two 10 by 10 pieces of batting. And if you wanted to, you could have one of those 10 by 10 be that Insulbright that we used a couple of weeks ago, but make sure that the shiny side faces the back fabric. In other words, it would be on the bottom. All right, so we've got that. So now what we're going to do, we're going to take the Quick Easy Miter binding tool. This is what it looks like. We're going to come down here to this widest on both sides, and I'm just going to be using a pencil or a marking tool of some kind just to draw that line and come back, and in the intersection where it crosses the fold, I make another mark. So I'm going to turn this, pull this out right to there. This is right on the corner. And I've had people ask me, so what do I do if I have a big quilt? Well, the corners are the same no matter whether it's a big quilt or a small quilt. So that really is not going to matter one bit. Right in that edge there. Come across here. So now that we've done those, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my regular sewing foot back on. So I got to get I got to tell you guys, it was interesting today. My marker was my chalk marker was completely empty. So I did a pretty good job. Obviously I have on a black shirt, but it's still black. I didn't get it too badly all over the place. I just laid down right here on my table some paper towels, and I used the method with the little straw. So that worked pretty well, using that and dipping that in there. Now, what am I ready to do? I'm ready to stitch. So what I'm going to do is go back to my straight stitch. And I'm going to turn this over. Don't panic, I haven't forgotten my front piece. And I'm going to take a straight pin. Now, sometimes that's not the easiest to find. Mine seem to get bent, but there's a straight pin. And I want to go right through that intersection spot. And then I want to make sure, oh my gosh, this one is right. So I can leave that. Doesn't always happen. And I'm just getting that folded and pulling it clear down. So then I can put it back like this. So I'm going to do that to all four corners. And this is one of those things that will make putting together a set of placemats so much easier, so much quicker than using like an add-on binding. Now, when I do use add-on binding, I use the Sew Steady tool called Bound to Fit. And that makes it easy to do. It makes it easy to get your diagonal pieces stitched together for that add-on binding, whether you're doing bias or straight, it doesn't matter. But this is a nice way to do it for those projects such as making placemats. And I've used it on large quilts before, but usually I do add-on binding on large quilts. When I say large quilts, I'm talking queen size, double, whatever. And by the way, if you've never quilted one of those larger quilts, make sure you get our suspension system to do that. It's so easy to use. Now, all I'm going to do is turn this, about unthreaded my machine. I'm going to turn this, and the line that I drew on there is my stitching line. So I am going to be stitching from the middle right here back to the pen, forward, and then back to the middle. I do not stitch this out here because that's what's going to allow us to do are turning. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the reverse, back to that pen, come forward, and back to the middle. I can take this pin out now. I'm going to go ahead and cut my thread. And I'm just going to take my scissors right here and leave 1/4 of an inch and then cut off this little corner right there. Now, you're probably wondering, why did I use my applique scissors? Because I need a straight cut, and all of my other little scissors have curved tips. So that's why I use my applique, because it's a straight cut. Come back in here, needle down. Always sew a few stitches forward. That makes your machine happy. And then you can do your reverse. One more. Come back forward to the end. You could go clear to the end first. It really doesn't make a difference. And I'm going to go ahead, remove that pin. I did not stitch over it. I stitched up to it, 1/4 of an inch, little diagonal off of there. You can see it's starting to turn up like that. Couple of stitches forward after putting the needle down. Reverse. Come back forward. And back. I love what you're saying, Regina. She said if she wasn't sold on the suspension system, so she broke down and bought 2 more pieces of it, and now she loves it. And I will agree with that. When I get done with this one here, since it's the last, I'll show you mine because I leave it on all the time. Sorry, sometimes I just have to concentrate. So let me move this so I can show you mine. You'll see probably 3 of them, maybe not all 4 of them. But I like to use 2 on one side and then 2 on the other. So I have 2 of them there. You'll notice I leave a little crook in them. And then I have my 2 over here. And so that allows the weight to be spread over 2 of those suspension systems. And I think most of you have probably heard me say, because I've said it several times, but I actually did a queen size quilt with fleece, or excuse me, by cuddle on the back and flannel on the front. Now that's heavy just because it's heavy, but definitely is doable. So it made a big difference having that suspension system. Now this is the right side. This is going to turn out this way and give me my mitered corners. And then I'm going to slip in my, what I call pocket, and my little hanger. And then we'll stitch all of this down. I'm not sure I got all of that in, but this was a 14-inch square. This is one of our 10s folded in half with a piece of fleece underneath it. So now what I'm going to do with this fleece is just clean up the edge on my cutting board. And it's got nothing to do with really cutting anything off except all of these threads that are sticking out here. So let's just lay that down. much better. This side is not bad at all. Now, when I'm actually doing a project and I'm not trying to all be in the camera and everything, I just go to my cutting board and do that. But this is nice to be able to have this here. It is part of a rotating system. I didn't put the rotating part up. But now, when I pull this back, see how that's going to come over? It gives me my nice corners. I'm going to give it a little bit of convincing just by kind of pulling that back each time. And then if this makes a difference, whether it's an up or a down, this one certainly doesn't. I'll make sure I've got the right side up on this because some of the others, yep, that's the right side. So I'm going to just tuck it in here, right down in the corner. And I'm going to lay it right across there. It's going to go from corner to corner. And I'm going to pin this, making sure I've got all of that overlap. Right back to that corner. And I'm just pulling on it a little bit to get it so it lays right up there. Now, if you want to, you can use Wonder Clips. But I just work just a little bit with those corners because I don't want it to be too full. And that's one of the reasons that I like to use a zigzag to close this down. So that corner is ready. Almost. I want that to go right to the corner there. There we go. And now the little piece that I'm going to call my hanger tab. Normally that would be on the back, but since we brought this to the front, I'm going to stick it right in there like that because it'll still work. But I've got to make sure, since I'm zigzagging, that I get this so it's going to get caught on both sides. There we go. And that one, I'm definitely going to get one of my little clips out because I'm sure not going to try to go through that many layers. And you're going to put these, when you do something like this, you're going to put these pins, you don't need them too frequently because it's going to lay down because it's already been pressed. But just keep that pulled back in underneath there. And let's pull this. And then I'm going to set my machine. I always say I'll remember exactly what setting, and I know I've written it down somewhere, but who knows where. But I'm setting it for a very narrow zigzag that is not real close together. So let me get another one of these. So I've got that down there. I think we'll be good. So let's get this in here, set it for a narrow zigzag. And what I want to do is catch the edge or right off of the edge and then onto. And I can look at this and I can see I've got a 3-point I'm going to change a 3.5. I'm going to change it to a little narrower. So I'm just going to lift this up, let it readjust. You can hear it doing that. I'm coming to this corner, and that's where I'm going to use, some sort of a tool, stylus or whatever, to hold that corner in place, because I can get right up in there, pivot. Now, when I'm getting to this thickness right here, I'm definitely going to use something to hold that down. You're going to hear the machine when it's, well, not really. It kind of went through that like it was butter. Pivot. I think you can see how that little narrow zigzag is really holding that. And because it's a hot pad, it's probably going to get a little bit more wear. So I've got my stitches just a shade closer than I normally would, just for that reason. When you're pivoting, it's good to leave it on the left so that when you get it turned, it'll be right where it needs to be to go on around. Zigzagging will allow it to not push against itself. Like if I just did a straight stitch, this would come up to this pin down here, and there would be a pucker at that point. So doing a zigzag gives it a little bit more freedom. As you can see, when I'm coming upon that, it's just kind of working its way in because it's a zigzag. Okay, got two more stitches. There we go. Right here is where we started. I'm going to overlap a little bit. I'm going to reverse, and then I'm going to touch my tie off button. Cut it. Go to the back where it cut and pulled through. And if I have any stitches in the front, there's one. And then I'm just going to press this so that I can get my chalk off of there. Love the fact that when I pick up my little iron, it's still hot. It hasn't shut off. And if you want to, you can press that back. I'm just going to leave it like it is there. Let it go where it wants to go. And there we have our quick gift. nice big hot pad that you can get a hold of. Get your hand in there. Use it like this if you want. But I really like these just because of the firmness of them and the fact that you get to do a little bit of what you do best, and that's sew. And obviously then you can make as many of these as you want. Make a matching table mat if you want to, whatever. It would be pretty to use this and do some toppers for like your towels that you know, either hang on the oven door or off of a cabinet or whatever. So that makes it very easy to match those up. So hope you enjoyed this tonight, showing you a little bit more. Oh, I wanted to show you how that's stitching up at the top. It's just a very narrow zigzag that goes around and allows you to have those nice mitered corners. And again, as I said, you wouldn't have to do such as a straight stitch here. You could do some template design there or whatever. Make this piece from this right here could be made from what I want to say, a striped print or a stripe or a print that when you worked it this way, it was a little bit more unique. And leftover blocks make great things like this. So again, you have two 10-inch squares of fabric, two 10-inch squares of batting, one 14-inch square for your backing that you bring around to the front, and a diagonal cut of a 10-inch piece, 10-inch square of fusible fleece to put on this. So any other questions? All right, so I'll try to come up with another quick gift for next week. That will be what, the 17th? Yes, that will be December 17th. And then I won't be here on the next one because that will be Christmas Eve. So I'm going to go ahead and wish you all a very Merry Christmas now, even though we're going to see you next week if you're here. And somebody said, what about using Insulbrite? Yes, Di, you can do that. If you just take one layer of Insulbrite, which has a batting on it, and then one layer of batting, just make sure your Insulbrite is to this back here. You would want it to reflect the heat this way. So that Insulbrite would be right when you put it down, the backing would go down, and then you would put the Insulbrite so the metallic part is down. So all right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye now.